Our long-term renter tried to claim my parents' house after 12 years. My parents used to own a house on a big piece of land. When my older siblings went away for college, the house felt too big for our needs, so my parents decided to sell the house, but not all of the land. They built a smaller house on the part of the land they didn't sell. A few years after, we moved to a city 2 hours away and kept the house as a place to go during the summer. My parents decided to rent the house, as it was well located and had a really nice view. Renting it meant they could use the money towards the mortgage and taxes. Karen and her boyfriend rented the place so she could be closer to her work. From the start, my dad made it clear the place was for rent, and my parents planned on living in that house after retiring at that time. Both of them planned to work for at least another 20 years. They would, of course, notify Karen in advance when they wanted to take back the house, so she would have plenty of time to find a new place. In return, they asked that she notify them in advance should she wish to move out, so they could find a new renter. The lease also stated that my parents would have some of their things in a locked storage in the basement, as well as in a shed on the property, and that they would always call Karen before dropping by to get something out of the storage, which was in the basement and connected by the garage, so they wouldn't even disturb Karen. For a few years, Karen was an okay renter. She paid the rent through a check each month. She smoked inside and didn't take care of the land, but my dad didn't make a fuss about it. Real trouble started after around 12 years. Every few months, Karen's checks would bounce back. My dad would call her to ask about it. Karen would profusely apologize and rectify the situation. Then, it became every other month until it was every month. Finally, my dad had enough and called her about the lease and the rent. During the call, Karen argued that, since she had been paying rent for the past 12 years, the house was now hers. My dad was shocked since that came out of nowhere. For a step. He tried to explain to her that she was renting the place, like they had agreed on since the beginning. Karen went on a bitch fit about how she had paid so much over the years, and she was the one living there and taking care of the place, which she was not at all, therefore, it should be hers. She threatened to take my dad to court. Now, where I live, there are many laws that protect the renter, and it can be a real bitch to deal with when you have a nasty renter. My dad hired a lawyer to make sure everything was in order. After a meeting with Karen, where the lawyer was present, she realized she didn't have much of a case since all paperwork concerning the house was in my dad's name, and the original lease clearly stated that it was a rental. My dad offered her to stop renting should she wish to after the whole debacle, but she wanted to stay in the house. He made her sign a new lease where it stated again that this was a rental, and that should she not pay or cause trouble again, my dad would give her the shortest possible notice of eviction allowed by the law. Karen is still renting the house after almost 20 years. My parents are not close to retiring yet. Do hope it won't turn into a shit show when they decide to take back the house. Edit. The question, why did your dad let her sign a new lease, comes up a lot in the comments. I will say what I answered throughout the comments. I don't have the slightest clue why he would do that. As I was much younger when this happened, I wasn't kept in the loop much. It was also not the reaction I would expect my dad to have, since he is respectful to others and expects the same in return. I do know the legal actions he took when she threatened to take him to court did protect himself and many future problems that might arise. I do appreciate all the concern and the advice, although I do think my dad had a good reason to keep her as a tenant from hell after everything that went down. This is the update of a post from 5 years ago. Some people asked for an update in the comments, and there have been new developments in the last few months. TLDR from the original post. My parents own a summer house that has been rented for a few decades. After a dozen years of renting, Karen decided that, since she'd been paying rent for so long, she now owned the house. My father had a lawyer make sure that everything was in order and, despite what was quite a surprising decision, agreed to renew her lease. Most people in the comments understandably predicted trouble when my parents would want to take back the house. TLDR for the update at the end of the post. The timeline. Since the beginning, there was a mutual agreement between Karen and my parents that they would both give a 6-month notice before she moved out, or my parents would like to take back the house. Last week of June, my dad received a phone call from a representative of Karen. Due to financial circumstances, she was giving a month's notice before moving out. My parents were surprised by the short notice but didn't really mind it, as they were looking forward to taking back the place. Last week of July, Karen was set to move out, but she asked for a week's extension as she couldn't find anybody to help her move. My parents agreed. She was now set to move out by August 3rd. August 4th. With the car all loaded up with essentials, dinnerware and cutlery, small furniture, we left for our first trip to the house. The plan was to look at the state of the place, clean a little bit, and take measurements for the remodeling my parents are planning. As we get to the place, we notice a small sign in the driveway advertising a garage sale at the house. We figured she forgot to take it down. We were wrong. As we get to the house, we can see boxes and furniture through the windows. Cue the shocked Pikachu face as she answered the door. Turns out she hadn't moved yet and meant to call my dad to let him know, but of course she never did. She clearly didn't expect us to drop by so soon after her supposed moving date. Myself. My parents were both extremely pissed, but they gave her an additional week and expectations of payments for the weeks she overstayed. August 18th. My parents received confirmation that she left the week she was supposed to. They had a neighbor drop by to make sure her things were really gone, but we didn't have time to make the trip until a week after. We found the place in much better shape than we expected. Of course, the place is not in perfect condition, as it clearly has the wear and tear of a place that's been lived in for years. It needs a good cleanup, some fresh paint in most of the rooms, and a look out of work on the land. There are also plans to remodel a bit to make an additional room on the first floor, so my parents don't have to go up the stairs all the time. Turning a new leaf over, so this ends this whole chapter. My parents got the summer house back years before they expected, and although the renter was difficult until the end, she mostly went away without all the trouble we all expected. My parents are happy to take back the place and are looking forward to all the projects they have for it. They have been going almost every week to clean and sort through the things we had stored there. My dad did a fresh coat of paint in some of the rooms, and they are looking for furniture. My brother went once and started to clear up some of the trees to get back the awesome view we used to have from the kitchen. My dad bought an old lawn tractor to help with the yard work and is excited like a little boy with a new shiny toy. We'd like to get the place cleaned and ready to hopefully spend Christmas camping there, as we most likely won't have a lot of furniture yet. Karen gave a month's notice but then asked for a week's extension. We went to the house the day following her planned moving out date to find all her stuff still there. Karen didn't expect us to drop by so soon. My parents were pissed. They gave her an additional week, which she finally respected. Yes, the house is in better shape than what we expected. My parents are happy to take back the house, even if it's sooner than expected, and they are very excited about all the plans and projects they have.